shortly after Elon Musk took over Twitter, I made a professional or personal appeal for him to lift a warning label Twitter had put on the Just the News story we broke right here last week on this show about Democrat whistleblower Cynthia Harris and her concerns about illegal ballot harvesting in Florida. Florida authorities are now investigating that. Well, our first guest, he actually echoed our concerns on Twitter, and he got Elon Musk's attention, so much so that Twitter reversed its censorship of the story. Now, joining us right now to discuss how that happened and so much more, including his big legal win in Illinois, is our good friend, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be with you both. Thank you, guys.
It was a fun Sunday morning. I got a text from you early in the day, and there it was, Elon Musk engaging your tweet about our censorship. Tell us what happened and your first assessment of his first few days on the job, Elon Musk at Twitter.
Well, he's obviously showing a personal commitment to opening up the platform and moving it away from political suppression, which is what all this is about. I mean, what struck me about your news story is that it was a news story about a black female Democrat complaining about election corruption, ballot harvesting specifically, a scheme. And as you highlighted, Twitter vandalized your page or your tweet and suppressed content related to it. You know, it was harder to get to it. And I called it to the attention of Elon Musk, and thankfully he took a look at it, and those working for him now at Twitter took a look at it and removed it. So if that's an example of how Twitter is going to be managed in the future, where they're not going to start putting their thumbs on the scales on public policy controversies, or in this case, news stories. In 2020, they were censoring stories I was highlighting from the New York Times. That's how desperate they were.
Yeah.
So it isn't just the news. Any story, no matter the source, is subject to suppression in this new left censorship. And I'm glad to see that Elon Musk is taking action to try to resolve it. It's a long way to go. Twitter is a mess. But if he's personally committed, that's 90% of the problem solved.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to the future landscape of a platform like Twitter. But Tom, you and my co-host John, you guys both have personally been censored, but also your organization, Judicial Watch. I'm curious, Tom, if you have noticed any changes. I mean, I know that it hasn't even been a week since the acquisition, but any changes in your reach or your engagement on Twitter?
I'm not sure about Judicial Watch's increase, but certainly I've gotten 50,000 new followers since the announcement was made. And I suspect for every leftist celebrity that leaves Twitter because there's more freedom on the site, you're going to have tens of thousands of Americans coming into the site or coming back to the site because Musk is promising a robust debate. And that's all we want. There are a bunch of leftists who spend all their time attacking me and other conservatives. And I'm not saying that they should be suppressed or censored. But no one's saying that. But that's what they say about us. They want to censor, or, as we see with January 6th, they want to jail people who they disagree with on election matters.
Yeah, and speaking of elections, I know everybody thinks of Judicial Watch for transparency, all the victories that you win on Freedom of Information Act, getting information for the American public, but you're making big strides also on election integrity. One of those things coming in the last few days, a judge rules in your favor in Illinois on the lawsuit challenging how long it takes to count ballots in that state. Tell us what's going on there in the first win that you secured.
Well, that's a lawsuit on behalf of a Congressman Boston, and other voters in Illinois challenging Illinois' rule or law that allows the counting of mail-in ballots that arrive for up to 14 days after the election, including ballots that are undated or at least postmarked. And their thinking is, well, if they're dated before the election, we can, well, obviously they can't check to see when those ballots have been signed, and they're arriving up to 2 weeks later. So we had that litigation, and the Illinois Democratic Party tried to intervene in the case as a defendant, which obviously would have gummed up the case in the lawsuit. It's a federal lawsuit challenging the implication of this law on the civil rights of our clients. And the court said, no, you can't come in We want to timely resolve this case. So we'll see what happens next. And I think it's very illustrative of where the left is here. The Democratic Party in Illinois was represented by Mark Elias, the controversial former Clinton campaign lawyer involved with the Russiagate fraud. His firm lost and his client lost. The left is desperate to keep these rules in place that undermine confidence in the elections. The left says they're in favor of democracy, then why are they messing with it by changing the rules in such a way that undermine the rule of law here? Federal law means the elections have to take place on one day. You cast the ballots, and the ballots are received on one day, by election day. And the idea that it just happens for weeks after election day is the opposite of clean and honest elections.
Yeah. And same thing here in California. As long as it's postmarked by election day, then they'll take it. It's unbelievable. Okay, I want to switch gears over to President Trump. Chief Justice John Roberts has issued a temporary hold on President Trump's tax records. The House Ways and Means Committee has been trying to get their hands on those tax records since 2000. What do you expect to transpire from this?
Well, it's a victory for Trump. The court, given some of its prior decisions, could have just easily let the lower court decision stand, and he would have had to turn his records over. So it means that the Supreme Court's going to be taking his concerns seriously. And frankly, I think the courts are off a bit here in suggesting that every time Congress wants to use the subpoena power to get records of individual citizens, that it's nearly impossible to challenge. I think that's wrong. And especially when we have all this evidence of abuse of power. I mean, the civil rights of American citizens shouldn't take a back seat to politicians in Congress who want to abuse their authority to rifle through our papers. Doesn't the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment mean anything anymore? I would hope the courts take that issue more seriously than they frankly haven't to date.
Yeah, an important case. We're going to be watching that develop throughout the rest of this year. Tom, you're pursuing John Kerry. I always get a kick out of John Kerry because when he was in the Senate, he always talked about he wanted to be transparent. Government needs to be more transparent. Now he's the climate czar for President Biden, and he doesn't want to give up his calendars. What's up with that? Public calendars have always been that. Public calendars. Tell us about that litigation.
Yeah, he's got this job as climate envoy. We're like, well, what is he doing? First of all, how much are we paying to send him on these trips? They don't want to tell us that. Who's he meeting with? What is he doing? They don't want to tell us that. Who's working for him? How's that office run? They don't want to tell us that. I mean, is this a make work job for John Kerry or not? So when you have secrecy, it suggests they have something to hide. This is a simple request. It's not complex. And they know what we want, and the fact they don't want to give it to us speaks volumes. And, just quickly, John Kerry is one of these, in my view, unindicted co-conspirators for the Durham investigation. His State Department was a locus of evil when it came to disseminating versions and variations of the dossier smears against Trump. Yep. And they were desperately shoving classified information out of the State Department into Congress to try to undermine Trump just as he's coming into office. Talk about subverting democracy. Kerry ought to be on Durham's dock just as much as the rest of them should be.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The State Department's activities, we just got some new documents that we're going to make public after the election, but just crazy what was going on there to perpetrate a false Russia collusion story. Tom, one of the things we can always count on with you and Judicial Watch, we get the truth. We really appreciate that. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Amanda. Have a great week.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. When we come back, one of my favorite guests, Congressman Andy Biggs, is here to discuss the border, COVID, elections, and a whole lot more. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.